Good day out there, everybody. How you doing? Transitional lenses. One was exposed to the sun, the other wasn't. Happened once when my grandson saw that and he wondered what the heck was going on. Today I'm going to talk about attornment. I want to expand more on the term and the understanding of attornment. Getting back to Samuel 1:8. That's where the people petition God basically for another king. That whole situation there, right there, is an attornment. This is where the people had God as their king, as their Lord, but they wanted God to choose them or give them another king and Lord. Of course, he explained the consequences of that, but it's not my point here. So we had God as our king and Lord, and the people wanted another, in this case a man, to be their king and Lord. That's called an attornment. Look up the definition, study up on attornment. You chose another Lord, another landlord. God was our landlord, now the queen, or your president, or your country's the landlord. Your fellow citizens, Wonderlandians, or landlords. Okay, so that's the attornment, choosing another king. Now, what's the evidence in this day and age that you returned? The birth certificate. So there's a lot of misconceptions out there what a birth certificate is and nonsense being circulated for a long time, and I was part of it, about the name, the all caps name, upper lowercase, blah, 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 dementio, and dementio and dementia stuff, the different, all small cap, all small letters, first letter capitalized, and then of course all caps. It's forget it. It's got nothing to do with it. We step back here to the beginning. You were born. Shortly thereafter, sometime thereafter, the birth was certified. The doctor provided the notice of birth. The mom or dad, whoever, whatever, filled out the certification, the certificate of birth, whatever, statement of birth, and sent that to the government. Whether the name on that document is in all capital letters or proper noun format or all teeny-weeny letters or black and purple or purple and white, it doesn't matter. That name at that point in time identified you, the child, as a son of God, a child of God. At that point in time. Format has nothing to do with it, you see, and you haven't got the birth certificate, so there's no evidence of the attornment yet, right? But then we got the birth certificate, and this is when it all went sideways for it. This is when we chose the new king. And when we did that, and of course we used it, went to downstream organizations, users, so on and so forth, and apply for this, apply for that, so got bills in the mail, started paying the stuff, so you can see what started to happen here, how we did all of this stuff to ourselves, really, and yes, we were deceived. That's the beauty of this understanding is the deception. When you see it, then you can flip it on them, and there's nothing they can do. But anyhow, staying on point here. So now the name on that birth certificate, which is exactly in the government of Ontario, I've got their documentation. They tell you flat out that the name on the birth certificate is going to appear exactly it is on the registration or certification of birth. So however your mom and dad put it on the certification of birth, whatever it looks like on there. Sheesh. Excuse me. Whatever it looks like on there, it's going to look the same on the birth certificate. And once again, it has nothing to do with the format or the style of the name. It's nonsense. It is nonsense. Let it go. It's old patriot stuff going around long enough. So I see now the birth certificate is evidence that you've chosen a new king, and so now that name says he is one of us. Remember what I said, an identity is not what you are, it is what you are of. So pre-birth certificate, the name said you are of, pointed to you and said, he, little Johnny here, Johnny Smith, whatever, Johnny Smith, yep, Johnny Smith is of God. That's his identity. Once you got the birth certificate, then it says, oh, little Johnny Smith here, he's of Canada. Attornment. That's simple. It has nothing to do with the style of the name. It's the identity, what you are of. So I'll say again, in the beginning, before you got the birth certificate, the name on that certification of birth, John Paul Smith whatever, John Smith, John whatever, Smith whatever, pointed to you, because a name is the means by which a thing is known, okay? A name is the means by which a thing is known. So John Paul Smith, we're talking about babies here, so we're talking about a baby is known by this name. So the baby, but how is the baby known? So pre-birth certificate, he's known as a child of God because he hasn't returned, you see. But after the birth certificate, all of that changed. That's when the attornment occurred. So no longer does the name say Johnny Smith of God. It says Johnny Smith of Canada, and that's what's being used against every single solitary one of you, and nothing more. That's it. So you can play the name game all you want. It ain't going to do anything for you. Oh, yeah, I have a little bit here, a little bit there, but been there, done that. But it's not the final conclusion, whatever. But there is a way out here, and that's I've already addressed two. There's basically two paths you can take. Is the attorney for the person? Now think about that. If you haven't thought about it, now think about this. They know that the person's a fiction. Just like General Motors, they know it's a fiction. They know it can't possibly think, speak, or act for itself. So clearly, if they lay a charge against General Motors, they put down somebody, and that's what they want to know, like who's the, for service, who's the CEO, because they're going to put his name down there. They're going to tie it to him because they know they need a man to show up to speak, think, and act for it. They know that. It's not like they're going to summons or give a ticket to a fictional being and expect nothing to show up. You know, deceived or not, that's irrelevant at this point. A fiction cannot walk in their court, so they know in the background that a man or a woman's got to come in and think, is going to think, speak, and act for this fictional thing. There's no other way. There is no other way. So, oops, I've been hitting the table there. I've seen a little shaking in it. Got a couple too many coffees today, maybe. And it is a lovely day outside. I went for a big walk. But so they know, so that's why I say you're the attorney of record, no matter what, from the get-go. As soon as you got that, as soon as you returned, you got that fictional, that, and became a person, basically, or not, you didn't become a person, it's not possible, but you started to appear in person and taking it all personally, signed on the dotted line, and then you started paying the bills, you see, so that says, oh, he's taking it personally. He thinks it's him. He thinks he's the fictional being. He doesn't know that he's actually appointed to think, speak, and act for it. As if he did, then he'd be immune from prosecution. He'd be immune from liability because he's not the person. Everything has to do with the person. All the charges go to the person. You see, so you start appearing in person. It's just all more compounding the fact of the matter is that we have turned to another king, another lord, another superior, another governor, another something to rule over us, another lawmaker, another owner. All of that. Everything we had over here with God, we handed over here to this God, this thing that is by nature no God. It's not real. It's fiction. No God, right? How can a fiction be a God, for heaven's sakes? It doesn't exist. There's psychiatric problems if people are thinking like that. So yeah, so they know that it's a person's a fictional being. So even though, you know, and I'm not, no way for me to verify this. You just need to think about this, really. Honestly, and just deductive reasoning, yeah, you know, what would be the point of compelling? You know, and in fact, there's a guy, KW, I think, he was pretty close in my estimation with respect to the registered agent or something or other like that. But you see, the key there is he was distinguishing the two. Man, what I just said there about the registered agent for the person, right? So two. And with the attorney, in fact, we're saying the same thing. It's just a much, in my estimation, anyhow, much simpler, quicker, faster way to get there. Especially when you learn how to play along with the deception, but knowing the deception. It's really all it is. It's brilliant. It is truly brilliant. I can't thank Marcus at Servant King enough for opening thine eyes. And I'm not saying they're wide open yet, not by any means. As Marcus would say, careful with our vanity. But so if you're the attorney for the person, then you're not the person. But again, a person is a fictional being. It's not possible that you can be a fictional being. So the fact is that you are the attorney. If you're in that kingdom, if you've turned, you are the attorney doing the attorney. I did that whole video on that, right, about what it is, what you're doing. You think you're doing it for you, but you're not. You're doing it for that other king, that other lord. You think you're doing it for this God, but no, you're doing it for that God that is by nature no God. Simple as that. It's not like it's a multiple choice here. It's just basically two. A or B. God's will be done, man's will be done. A or B. If you get to break it down, it's this or that. You get real world, fiction world. A or B. So hopefully that helps a little bit with people with respect to the understanding of the birth certificate. You can pretty well take everything else off of the table with respect to the mumbo jumbo being floated around out there. It's not that. A birth certificate, before you got the birth certificate, that name, John Paul Smith, Smith John Paul, date of birth, whatever, said he's a son of God, child of God. After you got the birth certificate, this is the attornment, new king, new lord, new lawmaker, new laws apply, blah, 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 blah. And right off the bat, somebody's applying to this other king, this other lord to apply for a birth certificate from this other king, this other lord, this other God. It is by nature no God. Only the deceived would do that, for heaven's sakes. I mean, who in their right mind would do that? In their right mind. Seriously. So that's when the attornment occurred. Now that's when that name John Paul Smith, John Paul, date of birth, birth registration. I don't care. It doesn't matter. That name says now, points to you. A name is the means by which a thing is known. So that name that name makes you known as a Canadian or of Canada. No longer does that name say of God. He's known of God. Galatians 4. Now that you're known of God, meaning now that they know that you're of God, not of them. It was only a few months ago when the lights came on that, because I about tripped up on that alone. What do you mean, known of God? You know. So, but there it is. Now that you are known of God, Galatians 4, 7 or something like that. Now that they know you're of God. So, if you're the attorney. Now here's the thing, we were deceived, right? So you did this unknowingly. That's a very polite way of saying I was tricked, I was deceived. Because you want to go down the tricked, I was deceived path, well, and we were. But that could lead into huge arguments, right? Where you just, I didn't know. But you're just acknowledging, yeah, you have returned. And you're also acknowledging, though, that you're not the person. So it's all good at the end of the day. It is all good. Mark my words. So this is what I'm really talking about, is playing in the box. Just expanding on the understanding a little bit, that you can actually play in the box and still come out winning, the winner. So again, all the legislation applies to the person. So if you're not the person, you don't have to worry about any of that. Zippo means nothing to you. Nothing. And they got no jurisdiction, no authority. But the fact is, we have returned. So, but if we, again, back to the attorney thing, if you're the attorney for the person, and you are, think about it. Don't take my word for it. Don't just say, "Oh, I heard it on YouTube or whatever." That's and just run with it. Think it through, so you see it. So then there's you. Of course, you're not the person, and someone's got to be in charge and control of the person, right? Right now, they're controlling you through the person because you keep appearing in person. But with this, you separate the two. Now you're in control. Because you're the attorney for the person. You're the only one that is. You're the only one that can appoint someone else to be an attorney, unless it gets in the court and the judge, and they want to take it into court and have a judge appoint somebody. So they'll take it before the Father. You're God. If you're in that wonderland, if you're Canadian, then they'll take it before the Canadian judge, the Father of the Canadians, and the other sons, the children, the lawyers, the crown, whatever. I'll bring in the prosecutors. Will bring in before that Father, and you may start making determinations for you. Well, we're not going to listen. That's why they don't listen to you. They don't have to listen to you. He's the Father. Dad doesn't have to listen to you. He can crank up the volume on the TV and pretend you're not there if he wants. What are you going to do if the Father's the Father? So this is a very non-confrontational, very simple, but you just have to really think it through, have the understanding. Okay, before I got the birth certificate, everything was good. The name, there was no of Canada yet. You see, there was no attornment. It didn't happen. It's that crossing over. Getting that birth certificate is now that name's basically that you're known by now says he's a Canadian. It's the only way it's possible. Think about it. Think about it. Until you got that birth certificate, it wasn't out here in the public, right? It wasn't there. It was not there. The birth record was over here, yes, but the birth certificate, there was nothing out here in the public. Nothing. Think about it. Just think about it. So pre-birth certificate, name says, it's the name by which you're known by, the John Paul Smith on the certification of birth, the statement of birth, certificate of live birth, whatever you want to call it, says he's of God. After birth certificate says he's of a country, whatever that country is. And those are not of God. Think about it. Please think about it. So the birth certificate, just one more thing here, is basically establishes your place of birth. Look on the face of it. Or look on the face of mine. It's got 3 jurisdictions on there. 3, starting from the ground up. Municipalities, by the way, are considered geographical, actual land. The municipalities at that level. It's after that that you get into quasi, like when they call it, Canada has its laws of the land. Well, that would be Canadian land, right? But there's no such thing as Canada. There's no such thing as Canadian land. It's all fiction. So the law of the land is actually law of nothing over nothing, if you know about the deception. It's God's soil. That's what we're of. And so from the ground up, so mine said County of York. Place of birth, County of York, or York County. Top of the birth certificate, Canada, and below that, Ontario. So here in Ontario, in Canada. And what did I say? You get the birth certificate you've returned. So now it establishes your place of birth is in Canada. Welcome, John Paul Smith, fellow Canadian, fellow Wonderlandian. That's all that's happening here, nothing more. So when they ask you for identity documents, what you think are identity documents, all they want to see that to know that they've got jurisdiction over you, that you're one of them. Remember, identity is not what you are, it's what you're of. They're asking for identity documents. If you don't have any identity documents, if you never got any identity documents, then there's, and you know the deception, you might still need to know that. I don't know what it would be like, because there's lots of, like I say, trickery and deception still going on. But with the knowledge, it doesn't matter. Once we know the deception, we can overcome all of it. Not that complicated, really. But so if you never had that identity documents, then what would your identity be? Couldn't be Canadian. We don't have any evidence of that. Couldn't be American. We don't have any evidence of that. Couldn't be German. I don't see any evidence of that. What would your identity be? But when you produce that stuff, I'm telling you, of Canada, of the United States, of Germany, of China, of Japan, of Australia, of New Zealand, and that's your lawmaker, that's your owner, that's your maker, your owner, and your ruler. But it all applies to the person, and as long as you keep applying and appearing in person. So again, with the attorney thing, you create that separation. The instant you create that separation, you're liberated of all the mumbo-jumbo that applies to the person. All of it. And you're the last man standing, because you're actually the only man standing. You're the only one that can claim. There's a claim can be made here. You own that claim. We'll get into that another time, maybe. All right, I think, let's just pause on this here, and I'll make sure I got everything, all the meat I wanted to put on here, and just dispel some of the myths out there with respect to what a birth certificate is and all the mumbo-jumbo circulating. And you don't need to talk to anybody else when I'm sharing here. You can just sit back and think about it. Get your paperwork out. Get your certification of birth document. You know, if you have it. If you don't have it, just take a piece of paper, write birth registration on it. You know, certificate of live birth, statement of live birth, and put a name on it. Look at it. Because, well, that's how it was before I got a birth certificate. Then don't make an application for a birth certificate. So you're going to send it to the holder of this for an application, of the birth record to apply for a birth certificate. There's your first jumping ship, choosing going to that other god now. I know we believe we have to, and blah, blah, blah. Doesn't make it so. In fact, it wasn't so, but nonetheless. So then we get a birth certificate. Just visualize, see it all. And trust me, relate it to 1 Samuel 8. That's when the people who were of God was their king, their lawgiver, their maker, their owner, their ruler. That's when they chose something else to be their law judge, lawmaker, owner, ruler. Laws of Canada, laws of whatever, all of those laws of that now apply. If you're on that fictional soil, those fictional laws of that fictional land exist to the fictional person that you think is you, or been acting as, regardless whether you think it or not. I don't know. I mean, no disrespect. We've all been deceived. So you want to be free of being treated or deemed a fictional being, a person, a son of Canada? Understand the attornment aspect of things, and that you are an attorney. We can help you with that if needs be. Going outside for a walk. Thanks. God bless. Love you. Ciao. One other thing, we're busting some myths here, misconceptions. None of this is representative of a corporation. That the birth certificate evidences the creation or existence of a corporation. It's purely identity. Are you of Canada? Or are you of God? It's not a service corporation, and those so-called service corporations are persons, and persons actually do not exist. How the heck can they serve? What are they serving in that capacity? Of course, if you get the person out of the equation, then it's all men and it's just people here now, right? So yeah, then it would be service people or service, how it used to be, express trusts under the common law, trustees, actual trustees, where the trustees are liable for their doings, and they would certainly, as we've discussed, maybe not in these videos, but have the 1906 or something or other, I think it was Roosevelt, I forget the president's name, but it did an inquiry into businesses that were run as trusts. None were going bankrupt, whereas businesses that were run as corporations, thousands were going bankrupt, and it was putting a burden on the public. So we get back to these people that are elected or hired. I wouldn't necessarily call it elect, not like it is today, but these people that are hired are hired to perform functions of trustees for the people. And of course, they're part of the people too, right? But they'd have to have others, so there's no conflict of interest there. And if there are businesses are run like that, everything's done on the up and up because the trustees are liable for default or fraud. Everything comes out of their pocket. So you see, that's more like God's law, right? Keeps everybody in line, because if you get caught with your finger in the cookie jar, you're going to lose everything. So why do that? Whereas today, with all the legal mumbo jumbo going on, people can evade stuff and escape stuff. Oh, bankrupt. Trusts don't go bankrupt. Not at that time, anyhow. There was zero. I think it was zero bankruptcies with respect to businesses run like trusts, where there were thousands of corporations going bankrupt. So, this whole birth registration thing, birth certificate thing, has nothing to do with the creation or establishing of a corporation or turning you into a corporation or anything like that. It's not there. The trespass, if there was one, is the deception. Remember, it's in the book of the law that our fathers were to teach us the law. And if our fathers taught us the law and we understood the law and it was taught properly, then we would not have chosen that other king. They would still have the birth record, would still have your name identifying you as a child of God, son of God, man of God on planet Earth, which is God's kingdom. There's no borders there now, so what do you need, sir? We're here to serve you, kind of thing. You're not going to get that kind of service so long as we're still under this whole fiction, within this fictional thing the way we are, as if appearing in person. Ain't gonna happen. And so call a spade a spade. It's all to do with identity, what you're of. And that right now everything you're doing is in person, and you are treated and being deemed to be a person, which is a fictional being. It's impossibility. It's all these videos here in the tricks, traps, and deceptions pretty well got it all covered. So enough said on this. I'll stop here now. It's almost 20 minutes or something like that total. So, yep. Love you. God bless. That's it. We're done. Thank you. Keep smiling. Light of God never fails. It's not possible. So unfortunately, in this world, if you're not of something, of some place, they call it statelessness, I think. Is what I'm relating this to. So you don't have any identification. You don't have, that part in the video there, this video here where I said, what are you of? If you never return, then what's your identity? What are you of? There was a case of a fellow who couldn't prove any of that stuff, so everything went sideways for him. In other words, they couldn't establish where he was from, where the birth was registered. They couldn't establish any of that, and last I heard he was in jail. But you see, that's the beauty of being the attorney. Again, someone has to be the attorney for the person. So when you understand this, it comes down to this: in the world is a man, but not of it as a person. I'll leave it at that.